Okay, so in front of us is an RTX 3090. This is the Founders Edition, as you can see. This card, unfortunately, is one of those half-working cards. It actually hangs on post, and as a secondary card, it typically will either throw code 43 or crash on drive install. Not that I'm going to check because it's not really necessary. So, a lot of people who have, let's say, cards or symptoms like this, they will typically make the mistake of thinking the card is not detected. I should note that if you have, let's say, a post code on your motherboard, typically what happens is that if you have a, let's say, card like this, it'll hang on post. So it will show B2 and get stuck there, or it won't post because the VGA light stays on. So to demonstrate this, I'm going to get a postcard. We're going to plug it in, and then you're going to see the 2B code on this postcard in a moment. Like I said, it'll just hang on 2B, it'll never post. You heard those 3 beeps? And typically for RTX 30 series cards, or at least the full hash rate ones, or the early ones maybe I should say, typically what will happen is that there'll be another beep and then it'll post, if it works of course. In this case, it never posts. It hangs on 2B and it'll stay there basically as long as you want, because this card unfortunately has memory training errors. So what we're going to do is we're going to use the VRAM test tools to diagnose this card, determine which memory channel has a faulty memory bank, and then we'll try to take a guess which one it is, swap it out, and hopefully we'll see the card work. So if you're wondering what the VRAM test tools are, I covered it in my RTX 3080 crash under load video, the one involving an Alienware RTX 3080. Anyways, let's go to the VRAM test tools and diagnose the card. Okay, so as you can see, we're in mods. We're using a video capture device, as I'm now a Twitch streamer and have one of these, finally. Anyways, in the spirit of my last 3080 video, I'm going to show you a shell script that you can write to automate these memory tests that you run on your 3090 and 3080s and whatnot, if you get a lot of these in. I definitely get a lot of cards in, as you can imagine. I run an LLC fixing graphics cards. Anyways, like I said, I'm going to start by removing the script that I currently have so I can rewrite it. So I'm going to type in rm3090.sh. and it should be gone. So you can see the 3080.sh, but there's no 3090. Okay, so the thing to note here is that the folder that we're going to be using to test our 3090 is 455.127. You may have a slightly different version of the VRAM test tools, but I should note that you're not missing out. Anyways, I'm going to name my shell script 3090.sh, so I'm going to type in nano 3090.sh. It'll automatically create the file, if I save it, that is. So first we're going to type in cd for change directory to 455.127. Press enter. Then we're going to type in /mods gpu test .js -oqa-old_gold test, and then we're going to type in $1 for argument 1, so we can change the test we use every time we run the script. Then we're going to type in -dram clock %, $2 for argument 2. Then we're going to type in -ignore underscore fatal errors. Then we're going to type in -run on error, and then -mats info, and then -fan speed 100s. These cards have a tendency to overheat when they run mods for some reason. Okay, we're going to press enter, so we're on the next line. Then we want a beep, at least I want a beep for my computer every time the test ends, so that I know it's ended. So then I'm going to type in echo -ne quotation mark, single quotation mark, /007 single quotation marks. Thank you to the guy who commented in one of my previous videos and mentioned this. It's I've used it quite a bit so far. And then we're going to type in nano mods.log, so we can go straight to the error reports after the test runs. Then I'm going to press Control X, press Y to save, press enter to save the name, and now in order to run our script, we're going to type in /3090.sh 178 for test 178, and then 100 for, so the DRAM clock or VRAM clock is at 100%. Now press enter. As you can see, it says GA102, and it's already failed. You heard the beep, and now we went straight to the file itself, mods.log. So anyways, if we go down, the thing to note here is that we have this error here. So GFW boot did not complete, maybe due to an invalid fs config. Notice how we have these 6 lines, I should say. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. If you can't tell, the reason why we have 6 of these training status lines is because a 3090 has 6 memory channels. A 3080 Ti also has 6 memory channels, so does a 3090 Ti and the 12GB 3080. Anyways, so the thing to note here is that they all are the same, as in they all end with 0, except the very first one, which ends in 8. So if you don't know, the very first one, this 0 here, represents channel A. The second one at the bottom here is channel B, channel C, channel D, E, F. So which means that we have an error at channel A. I can tell you right now, I pretty much know which memory bank this is going to be based off the fact that it's channel A, but of course there's only one way to find out. So now that we have that done, we're going to press Control X to get out, and then we're going to type in power off to shut off the system. Anyways, let's go back to the card itself. We'll talk about which memory banks belong to channel A, and then we'll try to fix it. Okay, so as you saw, we have memory errors at channel A. I should note that in this case, it is very, very likely a memory problem at bank A1, and I can tell you this because one of the many design flaws of high-end RTX 30 series cards, and yes, they are very unreliable. They're, in my opinion, the single least reliable set of cards released in the past 6-7 years. Anyways, like I said, one of the many design flaws of high-end RTX 30 series cards is that they have extremely heavy heat sinks. And what happens is that when they're inserted into a motherboard, installed horizontally that is, the PCB has a massive amount of board flex due to the size and weight of the heatsink. And what happens is that the memory banks at A1 and F0 in particular tend to have rip pads because the memory slowly separates itself from the board. Anyways, like I said, I suspect that we have problems at memory bank A1, but I should note that being a 3090, it's not actually just one memory bank that we have to suspect. There's two. Because 3090s have memory banks on both sides, there's actually technically two memory banks that are A1. So for example, on this 3090, this bank here is A1, but so is the bank right behind it, again, over here. So in this case, we have two memory banks that we need to swap, and hopefully after we swap them, the card will become functional. But anyways, let's get right to it. Okay, so as you saw, I replaced the memory bank at A1 on the front, not the back. I will replace the back later. If we measure the resistance on the memory phase, you'll notice that we have a rather normal 45 or so ohms, and also if we check 1.8 volts, we have 1.6 kilo ohms, which is again perfectly fine. So the reason why I've only replaced the memory bank at the front and not the back is because if we now boot the computer, you notice the card now posts. I'll still replace the memory bank at the back, but for diagnostic sakes, we can say with relatively high certainty that the only problem with this card currently, or at least before, was the memory bank at the front at A1. Anyways, let me go ahead and replace the memory bank at the back. We'll put the cooler on, and then we'll stress test it. Okay, as you can see, the card is being stress tested. If you're wondering why the video is choppy and blocky, it's because my laptop doesn't have the power to decode H.265 5.9K videos very well. But like I said, the card does work. It's tested for hours on end and passed without issues. Anyways, as for the repair itself, as you can see, it was a very, very basic repair. It's 3080s and 3090s are actually some of the easiest cards to repair because the diagnostic work is basically non-existent. For a lot of them, they just have GDDR6X memory problems, and you run mods or mats, and you get your failed result and replace the faulty memory bank, or try to find which one is faulty in a memory channel, which was this case. All we knew that it was a faulty memory bank at channel A, but we basically already knew exactly which memory bank it was. I only replaced one, and of course, the card works. Okay, before we end the video, I want to cover something that a lot of casual PC owners may not really realize is hurting their graphics card's long-term life expectancy. So, the reason why we knew on our 3090 FE that the faulty memory bank was A1, or we suspected it was the A1, and the reason why we got it correct on just a first guess, despite the fact that memory channel A consists of 4 memory banks, is because this is a direct result of board flex. So, as is standard in most ATX cases, graphics cards are typically mounted horizontally, like you see in this picture. And the thing to note here is that for a lot of 3090s and 3080s, because they're very inefficient and require huge heatsinks, the PCB itself starts to flex over time. So what you see is that the board will typically flex from left to right. This is the obvious part that everyone notices, but it doesn't just flex from left to right, it also flexes from back to front, meaning that the portion of the PCB next to the motherboard is actually sitting a little higher than the portion of the PCB next to the power connectors over here. And so, in a sense, your board is, or your 3080 or 3090, if it's mounted in this fashion, is flexing in two directions. And the end result is that, typically speaking, for a disproportionately large percentage of cards, memory banks at A1 and F0 tend to die, as the PCB flex causes the memory to slowly separate from the board itself. Hence why the memory banks near the PCIe slot typically have ripped pads. Anyways, so my advice to a lot of people who own 3080s, 3090s, and just cards that are very heavy is to actually use a PCIe riser, as a PCIe riser will typically allow you to mount your GPU vertically like this. And unfortunately, the riser itself will likely sag instead, but at the very least, risers are cheap, while in the current market, GPUs are very expensive. The other option, of course, is just to use a GPU sag bracket that goes on the outside like this. However, I have a suspicion this is still not as good as a vertically mounted GPU. Okay, but in either case, I should note that even if you don't have, let's say, memory problems on your 3080 or 3090, there's still a pretty high chance it'll just die anyways. The problem with these cards is that they are very, very power hungry, they have huge heat sinks, and in general, they're not very reliable. In my professional opinion, as a business owner who runs a graphics card repair service, high-end Ampere, and by high-end Ampere I mean GA102, so 3080 and above, or maybe I should say 3070 Ti and above, I would say that they're the least reliable set of cards released in the past 6 years, while 3070s and below are just fine. As per usual, I hope you learned something watching this video. If you want to support my channel, consider subscribing to me on YouTube, following me on Twitch, and sending me repair requests. It goes without saying that without my customers, I wouldn't be able to make educational videos like this, and by extension teach people the pitfalls of owning a high-end graphics card. Anyways, like always, I do hope you learned something, and hopefully I will see you in the next one.